name is Camille Seaman, and I always like to start by telling you a little bit about myself and where I'm from. I'm actually born on Long Island. Any Long Islanders? Anybody? A few. And you can see in the area circled in red, that is where my tribe is located. Shinnecock, anybody out there? Yeah, go to the powwow on Labor Day. So I was born in 1969, and I was named for Hurricane Camille, which landed just after I was born. And you can see I still look the same. Yeah, I just need a ball. And I was really very lucky. I didn't realize how lucky I was to have grandparents that really thought it was important for me to understand what it meant to be a good human being. And for them, that meant knowing that we were all interconnected and interrelated, not just with each other as humans, but with everything on this planet. We have a relationship. And so from a very early age, my grandfather would teach me lots of lessons. And the way he would do this was always very interactive. He would take me into the woods around our house, and he would have me introduce myself to the trees, each tree. And he would say, this tree is your relative in the same way that I am your relative, and you must respect it. And sometimes, as children do, he would catch me pulling the leaves off of a branch, and he'd say, you think you can do what you want to that tree without consequence? You think that you're separate from that tree? He said, if you think you're separate from that tree, see how long you can hold your breath. And then he would make me hold my breath. One of the other things my grandfather would do is he would make me sit outside for 1 hour every day, from the age of about 5 until he died when I was 13, every day. Whether it was snowing, raining, hot or cold, I was made to be still. And this picture is one of my favorite spots. It was a large boulder left by the last ice age, and I would sit on this rock, and then after an hour, my grandfather would call me in, and he would say, what did you see? And if I was feeling stubborn or belligerent, I would say, Grandpa, I didn't see anything. And he would say, go back outside. But what I didn't realize is he gave me the most fantastic gift of being still, observing, and as a photographer, those are two key ingredients. So fast forward a little bit, I had some unusual quirks. My aunt would come to visit us at our house, and she would find me in my bedroom closet drawing on the wall. And she would say, why are you drawing on the wall? So then she would find me drawing underneath the dining table. And finally, she just said to my mother, why don't you give that girl some paper? And so they gave me paper, and I discovered one of my first superpowers, which was drawing. And a few years later, that same aunt came back to visit, and she said, wow, you're really good. You should go to the Fame High School of Music and the Arts. And so I auditioned and got in. There's a little bit of foreshadowing in this photo. You can see me with a camera. So from 1984 to 87, I was a student here, well, yeah, in Manhattan, at 65th and Amsterdam, in the brand new, at the time, building of LaGuardia High School in the Music and the Arts. And that school was fantastic because as a visual arts student, we were required to go to the museums every week. And so I had the best training of my eye looking at these incredible pieces of art. But with every rainbow, there is some rain. And things were not good at home. My mother was so upset that I had pulled her back into the city. And so at the age of 15, I left home. And when I left home, the school recognized that I was at risk of falling through the cracks, and so they gave me a nichromat film camera. And they took away the manual. They said, you have to figure out how to use this camera. But they taught me how to bulk load black and white film and use a wet darkroom. And they said, go out and photograph your experience. And so I did. This is one of the self-portraits of me and my friend Abby in the Bronx. But sleeping on friends' couches, what I realized was this camera was giving, it saved my life. It gave me something positive and creative to do in a time when I felt very angry and disconnected. And I share this story because you might know someone in your life who is a bit lost. And giving them, whether it's a piece of paper to draw on, or a camera to play with, or a musical instrument, that thing might be the thing that saves their life. So think about that. One of the ways that I supported myself as a homeless teenager in New York was I worked as a New York City bike messenger. And I remember delivering packages to the World Trade Center all the time. My yearbook quote, I think, is relevant also. It was, "Wow, look at that turtle go." I had no idea how accurate that was to be the descriptor of my life. So I graduated high school, and I still didn't think of myself as a photographer. And part of that is, and it's part of why I'm standing on this stage today, and I thank David for having me here, because representation matters. Nobody came to my school that looked like me and said, "Camille, you can become a photographer. You should do this." Nobody said, "You can do this." And so I didn't think I could. It's important to have people that look like us tell us or show us that it can be done. And so after university, I discovered that I really loved doing my tribal beadwork, and I thought that that's why I was put on this planet. I loved working, making these beautiful items with traditional brain-tanned leather and vintage glass beads, and I thought, this is why I am on this earth. I worked doing it 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, just to keep fulfilling the orders. So I was quite successful at it. Galleries were selling it all over the United States. But one day I woke up and my hand felt like it was on fire. And I went to the doctor and they said, "You have Decrovane's tendinitis and you have 3 options. You can do cortisone shots, you can rest it, or you can have surgery." And I was like, well, let's try rest first. So while I was resting it, my boyfriend at the time had to go to Los Angeles on a business trip. By then, I have to tell you, I'm living in Berkeley, California. So I'm now on the West Coast. And he said, you have nothing to do, why don't you come with me? And so we're sitting in Oakland Airport waiting for this 1-hour flight to Los Angeles when they announced that they've oversold the flight, and if anyone can wait just 1 hour, they will give a free round-trip ticket to anyone who gives up their seat. And I said, well, I don't really need to go to LA. I can wait. It's a free ticket. And if anyone had come up to me in that moment and said, if you give up your seat, you will end up at the ends of the earth, I would never have believed them. So I gave up my seat, and I waited 1 hour for the next flight. It just so happened that it was Alaska Airlines. And I have to tell you, never in my entire life did I ever have any curiosity, interest, or desire to go to the polar regions. I hated the cold. Part of the reason I moved to California was to avoid the brutal winters that you have here in New York. And so here was this free ticket, and I decided to take it because it was an opportunity for me to do what I consider a reverse commute. I wanted to see what it felt like for my people if we had indeed traveled across this ice bridge from Siberia to North America. I wanted to feel what that felt like. No, I did not actually think I would get to Russia, but I wanted the sensation of walking on the frozen ice. So I packed a bag, did some research, and ended up there in early March. And what I didn't know was that Alaska Airlines is notorious for losing luggage. So all of my warm clothes were in that bag. and it was minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit. So I stepped off the plane wearing basically what you kind of see now. I had a bag that had my film camera in it, and when I discovered that my luggage wasn't coming, the local Inupiat people took pity on me and said, "Don't worry, sister, we got you." And so they outfitted me completely in sealskin, parka, hat, gloves, everything I needed, and they said, "When your stuff comes, we'll get it to you." So, one morning, it was time. I stepped foot off of the land and onto the frozen sea ice, and I started walking. And every 10 feet or so, there was a small twig in the ice, and I thought, great, there's even a path. This is totally safe. And every 10 minutes or so, someone on a snowmobile would come by and they'd say, "Are you okay?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I'm just going for a walk." And they said, "Okay." So I was like, this is great. There's traffic, I'm totally safe. And so for a while, there was traffic, people always stopping, "Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm just going for a walk." "Okay." And after an hour, their twigs stopped, the traffic stopped, but I kept walking away from town in the direction of Russia. And I walked, and after some time, 2 snowmobiles pulled up on either side of me, a Russian woman and an Inupiat man, and they asked me a different question. They said, "Where are you going?" And I said, in my naivete, my stupidity, I said, "I'm trying to get to where the ice ends and the sea begins." And in my mind, I really thought that it was like this stage where it was just a table and then water. And they said, "Well, that's 22 miles away." And I said, "Well, I can't walk that far." And I literally just had what I was wearing. I had no water, no shelter, no food. But they said, "We're going that way, we can give you a ride." And in that moment, I heard my grandfather's words, "If a door opens, even if it's not one you've walked through before or planned on, walk through it. There is great teaching there for you." And so I said, "Well, I've never been on a snowmobile before." And I hopped on with the guy, and off we went. And we're zoom, 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 zoom over the ice, and I'm like, "Woo, this is amazing!" And suddenly I was like, wow, we're going really fast. And I looked and I saw we're doing like 60 miles an hour over the ice. And I started doing the math, like I've been on this thing 10 minutes times 60 miles. Whoa, stop, I have to walk this back. So I tapped the guy and he let me off, and it was one of the few times I took the camera out and I watched them disappear into the whiteness. They just disappeared, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then I turned around to look for the town, and it was gone. And I thought, uh-oh. And so I knew that there were polar bears out there. And I knew that I was standing on frozen sea ice that could literally open up and I would disappear. I knew that there could be a whiteout and I would never find my way back. And so I decided in that moment to turn around and start following those snowmobile tracks back before they were blown away. And as I walked back, I understood for the first time all of my grandfather's teachings of making me to understand that I was standing on my rock in space, that I am an earthling. I am made of the material of this planet, and I hopefully will return to the material of this planet. I understood that I meant nothing in the scale of space and time standing there on the ice, but the fact that I could even have these thoughts was a miracle. I made it back, obviously. And what I found out was I was actually 3 weeks pregnant with my daughter as I was having this adventure. So my awakening as an earthling was also my awakening as a mother. I told this story to my then mother-in-law, and she said, oh, we have to go to this place called Svalbard. And that set in motion a series of events. I don't like talking over my photos very much, so I'm just going to show you what happened when basically I said, yes, I want to become a photographer. I said yes because of September 11th. I said yes because so many of the pictures I had of me as a teenager and my friends had those buildings. And I was holding my daughter when the second plane hit. And I understood she would never know those buildings in the way that I had, except for in a photograph or film. And I thought, what can I do to show that there is something beautiful about my life and this planet? This is a culmination, there is sound if you can play it, of over 10 years to that point of working in both the Arctic and Antarctic. It's about 3 minutes long, and then I'll talk some more. So I'm going to jump forward a bit, because if I told you about all 20 years working in both poles, we'd be here a while. And all of that time has been amazing, and I like to call myself bipolar. I wanted to talk about the ship I just came off of. I literally almost directly flew from the polar regions here, and that's why I'm a little bit tired. But this is the brand new ship that Linblad has built with National Geographic. And as a photographer, it's the first ship I've been really excited about to be on. In fact, I keep saying this ship has ruined me. It has this beautiful, what's called X-bow. You can see this very strange shape of the nose. It has, I don't know if the laser pointer, yeah, okay. So it has this wing on either side that you can stand and photograph from. All of these are open. You can stand here and photograph. You can stand here and photograph. You can stand here and photograph. And of course, if you have any of these rooms, you very quickly can go out of your room. Even at the aft of the ship, there's great places to photograph from. And so rather than me tell you about the ship, I just wanted to share a little bit of my most recent trip, or one of them.
Welcome to the National Geographic Resolution in Svalbard. April is late winter, early spring in Svalbard. It's a beautiful sight. Everything's covered with snow. Give us an opportunity to really see what the pack ice is and what the environment of the Arctic is like. During the trip, we will approach some of the fjords that still have fast ice, which is the favorite habitat for seals. And because the seals are there, it's also important habitat for polar bears. Bundle up a bit, come out on deck, and bring your cameras. And just ahead of the ship, a couple miles, is Lily Hook Glacier.
I've been coming to the polar region since 1999, and my very first time here in Svalbard was back in 2003. I remember it like it was yesterday. And even though it's, oh my God, almost 20 years ago, it is still a place that inspires awe and wonder. So the alignment of National Geographic and Linblad to expose people to the geography of our planet, to better inform them, educate them, to see the beauty and the value of maintaining and protecting these places is really what both Linblad and National Geographic are about.
There's a big cluster of ice right there. He's right in front of one of those clusters, right in front of me, straight ahead of me.
I could have your attention. There has been a polar bear spotted. It's some distance directly ahead of the ship on the flat ice in the distance. If you come out on deck, again, do try to be very quiet.
There's a mother bear and two baby bears, and they're kind of going, sniffing around like a patch of snow.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so tiny. Or so far away. There's the bear. It's a pixel bear.
We've just made our way into Van Kulen Fjord, a southern arm of Belsen, on a beautiful afternoon with broken cloudy skies, light coming and going, and we found a young polar bear. We saw her from some distance off, and we've been slowly approaching the bear, silently as we can. Everybody's being quiet on the deck. The ship is making its way through the ice with great care so as not to disturb the bear. And as we got closer, we were able to see that this young bear has a kill. It's eating a seal as we watch. Wonderful thing to see. In fact, we think that probably this bear killed the seal very soon after we first saw it. So we've been able to see it having a great meal. It may be enough food for it to last a week. wonderful big mammal out here in this icy, icy world and splashed with red from its prey. Pretty great.
By far, that was probably the bloodiest bear I'd ever seen. So going early in April on the ship, that was an experiment. We weren't sure, but it was also a test of the ship's abilities of breaking ice, of handling very cold. At some points, it was minus 20 degrees Celsius. So quite cold, and the wind chill even colder. As a photographer, I fell in love with the ice. In both polar regions, people go for the polar bears and leave for the ice. And in Antarctica, they go for the penguins and they leave for the ice. Being there at such a cold time and being able to witness these phenomena, this is something I had never seen in person called sea smoke, where the water temperature, even though it's freezing, was so much warmer than the air temperature, which was way below freezing, that it was creating this smoke. It was incredible. For me, it's always about the light. And the polar regions have the most unique and very special light. We arrived in April just days after the sun had basically made its way up and would not set again for 3 months. So we had some warmer light if you were willing to stay up till 2, 3, or 4 in the morning. But again, the light, just spectacular scenery. And you know, this is our planet. This is not a science fiction film. I will take questions after. And you know, witnessing the reindeer in this environment with snow on Svalbard, that was new for me. I hadn't been there that early on a ship. And there's my bloody bear. Because of the X-bow, the ship has true icebreaker status. And that means we can go where other ships cannot go. And again, as a photographer, that's worth its weight in gold. That means I will have opportunities that no one else will. We had one encounter where I had never seen this before either, 2 polar bears mating. And this male bear, I had always heard that the male is twice the size of the female, but I had never seen a male that close to a female to see that size difference. So this is the male chasing the female after the incident. And they came literally right up to the ship. He was so big, he kept falling through the thin ice. And because she was half his size, she had no problem walking on it. But it was remarkable to see this. Watch how he uses his leg to try and pull himself out, and how he tries to keep his weight distributed as low as possible on the ice. I mean, this obviously was not his first time doing this. But it was such an incredible experience. You could hear him calling after her. But look at that, that's incredible. And look at the ice flexing under him like a waterbed. It's these kinds of moments that make these trips so special. And that was one of my favorite images that I made of him when he had fallen in. So I want to show you this picture, which is of a trapper's hut. And that structure, that is, because they were trapping for fox furs, they would keep the furs and things up there so that the polar bears couldn't get to it. Just 6 weeks later, this was that same spot. And this is a trip I just came back a couple days from. In just 6 weeks, because it's 24-hour daylight, it all melted, and there was a heat wave. When I was there just a week before, it had been almost 70 degrees. So then, instead of ice, it's water. And we had this incredible encounter with a mother and 2 cubs. And we also had this encounter. It was actually 2 bears feeding off of this dead whale. And the whale was so deteriorated, we couldn't figure out what kind of whale it was. But in this image, you can see just how quickly the landscape changes from snow and ice to dark browns and these beautiful abstract patterns. But with that melting, we are able to go more often on land and have opportunities like this to photograph walrus as they haul out. So I'm going to speed up a little because I don't want to take too much longer. The Antarctic, excuse me, can I get some water? The Antarctic is, if you've not been to either polar region, you should really go to the Arctic first. The Arctic is a place that animals have been hunted for thousands of years. And so when you find them, it is a real privilege and honor to see them because they can be elusive. But when you go to Antarctica, we basically can guarantee you, today on this beach, we're going to see 10,000 Adelie penguins. And on this beach tomorrow, we'll see 200,000 chinstrap penguins, and so on. So the life is incredible. But again, having this ship and its capabilities enabled us to go into the Weddell Sea on the solstice of December 21st, 2021.
Good morning. We are sailing in the Weddell Sea. It's the 22nd of December, one day after the summer solstice here in the Southern Hemisphere. And we have glorious light, tabular icebergs. The sun is on its way up, and the color in the sky is red and orange and absolutely lit up. So here in Antarctica at the Antarctic Circle, which is 66 degrees 33 minutes, the sun literally never goes down. We're just shy of that. We're about 2 degrees shy of that. And we do have a sunset, but only barely. It never really got dark enough to see the stars. So it's absolutely beautiful here.
It's a little bit nippy, but it's hit midnight, and this is the best sunset / sunrise, I think, of anyone's lives here. We were meant to go to bed a while ago because it's been a long day, and we're not going to bed. We're not going to bed tonight.
It's really special to be in these places where there is this sunset that merges into sunrise colors.
What time was that?
That was December 21st.
That's the day, but what
That was just after midnight, but we stayed up, most of us, till 3 or 4 in the morning, and the colors just kept coming. The image that they used for the event here was from that evening or morning. But I wanted to show you here on the bow, there's this platform. One of the things I love about the design of the ship is a small detail, but it's so functional. That little shelf means that you can have your cameras there, you can have a hot drink there, you have a place to put your gloves or binoculars. It's fantastic. And for those of us who are slightly more height elevation challenged, this little platform also helps. So I love the thoughtfulness of the ship's design, and you know, every now and then I just get a feeling and I go, this is the night, the clouds are right, everything just feels right, and I end up staying up till 3 or 4 to make images like this. Antarctica really will blow you away. It is like being on another planet. And you have to pinch yourself sometimes to realize this is our planet. This is our heritage, it is our legacy, and you know, something this remarkable is worth preserving for future generations. And the reason I am standing on this stage here today is to invite you to become ambassadors for our planet and make images that help to tell the story of these places that cannot speak. Because, again, we have that ice-breaking capability, we were able to go into the Weddell Sea and see emperor penguins beside Adelie penguins. I think the Adelie was feeling a little like short. So he stood up on a little ice hill to try and be taller than the emperor. And as I said, people go there for the penguins, but they leave for the ice. For me, always, maybe it goes back to that time of being in school here in Manhattan and going to the museums and looking at paintings. I'm painting light with my camera there. And so the last chapter of this, because if you are fortunate enough, you should do the great trifecta, which is Antarctica, South Georgia, and the Falkland Islands. If you can do all three of those, yeah, you can die happy. This is a place where there are not just hundreds of thousands, but millions of king penguins, and the sound can be deafening. South Georgia is famous for being the place where Shackleton went for help. And this is actually, you can see just over in the far corner, is his graveyard. This was the day after his 100-year burial anniversary at Grytviken. So there's history. There's lots of friends to be made. Some of them really smell bad. And some of them will bite you. So you must respect them. But always there are these beautiful moments, these incredible creatures, your relatives, your relations. They operate on the planet without any interference from you, and yet you have a relationship. This particular trip past February in South Georgia and the Falklands, I was so amazed to see so many albatross. And albatross are spectacular creatures. It's very difficult to give a sense of their scale. This is a black-browed albatross. It has about a 6-foot wingspan. And this is a wandering albatross. It has about a 12-foot wingspan. And you know, for it to fly over my head, for me to get this image, was, you know, your heart flutters. You feel like you're being blessed. And I spoke about millions of penguins. I do not exaggerate. The sound, the cacophony is really just something, again, that you just sit there and can listen to this trumpeting. I don't know how they do it, but they find each other here. And so with that, I leave you and invite you to find yourself there. Thank you.
Q&A, we'll take some questions.
Sure.
Okay.
Somebody has questions. Somebody over here had a question. She did, yeah.
Okay, we got a microphone for you. I think. Nope, we don't have a microphone. And what's your question?
Hi, my name is Eva. I'm from Iceland.
Hello, Eva. Good dog, good dog.
Everything you said, except for the animals, we don't have the animals. It's like through watercolors or the ices. The only thing is missing maybe is the northern lights.
Yes. So she's saying she's from Iceland, which actually I love Iceland. I really do. I love Icelandic sheep. I love Icelandic horses. I love the Icelandic landscape. It's another actually very accessible place for you to get to from here.
That was I was going to get into, you know, it's a little bit closer.
A little bit closer. Like if you want to take baby steps into the polar regions, Iceland is a good baby step. Only one part of Iceland is actually inside the Arctic Circle, and that's the island of Grimsey. So it's a nice place to just tip into it. There's also great puffins there. So thank you. Yeah, Iceland's amazing. Any other questions? Back there?
How do you protect your gear from elements?
How do I protect my gear from the elements?
Yeah, like this, you know, that's a very nasty, salty environment, right?
It's a very nasty, salty environment indeed. And I try, I'm going to keep it real. I lost a camera to the sea in Antarctica. It had been raining so much I didn't realize that my camera strap was coming loosely undone. And as I stepped out of the Zodiac to go onto the shore, it went bloop into the water. It was a Canon 5D with a 35mm 1.4 lens, so it was a It was a loss. But what was amazing was that I was able to retrieve the camera. It was finished, but the card was still fine and the images were on it. From that day forward, sometimes you have to learn the hard way. From that day forward, I always have my cameras in a thin dry bag, and then that goes in a bigger dry bag. And I do not take those out of the bag unless we're moving very still in the zodiac, very calmly, or when I'm on shore. In that bag, I also have a super absorbent towel so that I'm constantly trying to keep my gear clean. I have not found that any rain cover for my lenses has been adequate. I also have an attached lens cloth so that I can keep wiping water off my lens. What you'll find in both the polar regions, Arctic and Antarctic, is that with climate change there is much more moisture, much more precipitation, and so you're more likely to encounter rainy conditions, which can be very frustrating. But yeah, that's how I protect my gear. Waterproof, waterproof.
In reference to what you're saying, when do you find the best time to go?
She's asking, when is the best time to go? Well, first you have to decide which one you're going to, the Arctic or the Antarctic. Because if you want to go to the Arctic and move around on a ship, you're going to have to go when there's water, not ice. So anywhere from April till September. If you want the northern lights, then of course you need to go when it's dark. So that can be anywhere from October to February. If you want to go to Antarctica and see, pristine white and clean penguins, then you want to go in early December, November. If you want to see chicks and eggs, then you have to go middle December to early January. If you want to see everything really rough and raw and messy, then you want to go and have chicks pecking at your legs, then you want to go in February to March. So it really depends on what you want to see. Any other questions? Oh, I'll do him and then I'll come to you. Hi. Green jacket.
What are your options for going there?
What are your options for going there?
Who goes there? Just National Geographic or?
So Linblad, who has a table upstairs, they go there. If you want to go on a ship like that. There are many companies that do it, but as I said, the ships the capacity of the ship is amazing. I also like the fact that with these ships, the maximum number of passengers is around 100, as opposed to other companies that have 200 to 500, which again means the less people you have on the boat, the more time you have on shore, the more access you have. So that's one way to get there. You can do it a more intrepid way. You could just find your way there and figure it out. There are always ways to get there, but it's how do you want to get there? Do you want to get there comfortably, or do you want to just get there? We can talk more about that if you like later. There was somebody else back there. Yeah?
Yeah, when you go into the cold, you have to have extra batteries.
I'm sorry?
Extra batteries in the cameras.
She's saying if you go into the cold, you need to have extra batteries. That's true, but unfortunately, again, with climate change, I haven't found that that has been even an issue. When I first started going to Antarctica, we would encounter temperatures of -30 or so. I have not experienced that since. In fact, it's the reverse. It's now 60 degrees, which is not normal. One of the things, and I do find that the lithium batteries do hold a charge fine. The drone footage that you saw, I was a little nervous, like how the batteries would do in the cold. They were fine. So it can be an issue, but if you keep them close to your body and just have a spare with you, that really solves it. There was somebody further back. Oh, there you are. Hi.
It was similar to just basically, have you done these, like
I can't hear you.
Sorry, have you done these before going solo versus going on an expedition, and what do you find is the biggest difference?
What is the difference between going solo versus an expedition? If you do it solo, I can almost guarantee you it will cost more to have that kind of similar access. We really can get you places that you cannot get on your own. Unless you're going to rent a helicopter or you run into somebody who happens to have a spare icebreaker sitting around and invites you on, which, I mean, it could happen. But I think a great entry into these places are these expedition vessels because it is organized, it is safe, and trust me, like, for example, polar bear safety is a real thing, and we have many people with us who are trained with a rifle, and you know, like it's life or death there. Like you really have to be careful. You are not allowed even out of a certain perimeter of the town without being licensed with a rifle. So Svalbard's serious. If you went, for example, to the Canadian Arctic, you could probably do it to some degree, but again, like how far you could get and how much you could see, I don't know. I find in all of my years doing this, that I have great access. I'm able to make incredible images and be comfortable. I purposely did not show a picture of my cabin because it was so amazing. It's such an amazing cabin. I had full floor to ceiling glass, sliding door with a balcony. It was ultra modern, ultra comfortable. And I just don't know that you would get that for any price lower than this and get you to all of these places. Like I said, you are more than willing to do it and try it, but I can guarantee you you'll get a very narrow window into those places as opposed to such an incredible experience. Pink shirt.
Just to lend an unsolicited compliment to Linblad. I've sailed with Linblad. And yes, I've sailed with Linblad. And one of the things that I loved was the number of, and the breadth of scientists on board and the guides and the amount of information that one learns just sailing.
These are not cruises. Yeah. This is an expedition. And you are educated, you are standing. It's one of the best ways to learn is you're standing side by side with someone who is passionate about their field. So you're standing side by side with glaciologists, marine biologists, ornithologists. And so honestly, I wasn't that excited about penguins or birds until I started hanging out with these ornithologists and like, did you know that this penguin is going to return to almost within 1 meter of where it was born? And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So it's contagious, their enthusiasm. And I think that has great value. You are learning so much. Maybe even more than your head can handle sometimes. I often wonder, like, do you need a vacation after you come off of one of these? Yeah. I wanted to just also bring it round and say, you know, as a person of color, a woman, I would like to see more people like me up there. So I'm inviting you to explore your world. All of you. I mean, it is such a magnificent planet we have. And as Jacques Cousteau said, you will not save something you do not know. And you will not know something you do not love. So we must fall in love with these places by knowing them. So please, learn about your environment. I think there was, somebody else had a question?
We got to go on. Thank you so much for
sharing
your
story.